Hello and welcome to my channel. This is Machine Dana. Good to see you. Today in this video I'm going to be discussing traffic light systems, how you can set up traffic light systems to indicate what level of product you have in your circuit networks. So this could be liquids that start to run low, or it could be physical products or gases, or even certain items within your logistics network as well. If you find this video useful, please feel free to thumbs up the video. It does genuinely help me and I appreciate it a lot. And if you want to see more content from me, please feel free to subscribe. Otherwise, enjoy the content. Let's get straight into it. First things first here, if you see any funny things, colours or products or icons or whatever, don't worry. It's just that I've got a few mods installed. I've done other videos about my suggested mods, so please feel free to browse around for what mods you might be interested in and ones that I would recommend. So don't worry about that at all. This is literally a tutorial video on how we can set up the traffic light system. The setup here is a basic liquids unloading station. Now again, this could be applied to physical products, logistic networks, gases, liquids, all sorts. So don't worry too much about the fact that it is liquids, although you may want to use this for your liquids. So what I've got here is a train that gets unloaded. The water will get unloaded into these storage devices. Now I know that this particular storage device here can have up to 25,000 in that particular tank. There are 4 of them, and actually there are 2 stations. So I know that the total quantity of liquids that I can store in my liquid bus line, and there's my liquid bus line. Just for reference, it goes quite far out that way. I know that the maximum storage capacity using these is 25, 25, 25, 25, 100 times 2, 200,000 water in these storage tanks. That's the absolute maximum. Obviously, the minimum level is 0 water if it starts to run low and the factory is taking too much of this, so the demand is too high and the supply is not enough. First of all, I want to connect up all of these tanks. Now, how do you do that? Let's get the actual correct tanks here. By the way, I have done a more introductory video to circuit networks, so if you're not sure how to do some things in here, you may want to look at the other tutorial videos that I've done about circuit networks. You literally left click on the green wires and then connect them by left clicking on the devices. All those storage tanks are now connected, and you can tell that by the fact that they've got the yellow boxes on them. I'm going to just remove them. So they're all connected, and because these 2 stations are connected to each other via these power poles, and this one here, we're able to see by hovering over the circuit network, if you look in the top right hand corner here, 197,000 water currently stored in those storage tanks. Now what I want to do with this particular thing is have a traffic light system that tells me when it's starting to run low and when it's running really low, and that seems pretty straightforward. Okay, so all I'm doing is converting the signals from the raw storage amount of the product into some sort of usable visual indicator. The visual indicator being green for good, amber for kind of keep an eye on this dude, and red for, yeah, you need to look at this, there's a problem here. And you know how that's useful. I go on my map, this is my liquids unloading station. Green, 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 red. I can see this product here, which is hydrogen chloride, Bob's Mods liquids. I can see there's an issue with the supply of that because there's basically none of it, and it's run below a certain threshold. It's giving me an indicator of that. So how do we do this? First of all, you're going to need obviously the wires, you're going to need the lamps, and you're also going to need let me see, where have we got them? Yeah, the decider combinators. There are ways that you can do this with arithmetic combinators, but I'm keeping it simple with just using decider combinators. And then you also obviously need the power poles and the storage tanks if you're doing it for liquids. That's literally it. You don't need anything else for this. Everything else is just purely using the signals, converting the signals into a usable fashion, applying a little bit of simple logic, and then connecting it and setting it up in the right way. So, basic traffic light system. We've got all of these storage tanks connected up. I'm then connecting this power pole to 2 arithmetic combinators. Now these 2 here, annoyingly I don't have enough room to do it as neatly as I'd like to over here, but it doesn't really matter where you place the combinators. The placement of the combinators isn't very important, as long as you actually have the logic that's then filtered through. So I've just connected 2 decider combinators next to each other like that here. And then I've connected the input signals from the power pole. So these are the signals from those storage tanks and these ones here. From those to the input sides of the decider combinators. Okay. And the way you do that, you simply grab the wire, click the power pole, and click it on the input side of the decider combinator. Okay. I've then connected it to the next one by clicking from there to there. That gives these, as you can see now, I'll just disconnect one of them so you can see the difference. This one here has no input signals. As you can see on the right hand side here, there are no signals that are being pushed into that. This one here is connected, so you can see that it has all the signals connected from all of my liquids and gases on the train stations there. So to test that, you simply can hover above the item itself. So I've connected the inputs. We now have some data that can be used as a raw input to create the traffic light signal. I'm then going to connect those to another set of 3, which represent these 3 here. So let's do that. Let's just put them. I'll put them down here, a little bit out of the way, just for simplicity. So I'm going to connect those to. Now these 2, I want to connect to the middle one, because these 2 here decide the logic for the amber. Amber's a little bit more complicated because you've got a top and a bottom threshold. With the red, so a low threshold, if it's below a certain value, it's just show red. With the green, if it's above a certain value, you can simply show green. So that's a lot more simple logic. With the amber, it's actually if it's below a value and above a value, it's got to be above the red threshold but below the green threshold. And that's why we just need a little bit of extra logic here for the amber. So I've connected the 2 logics that I'm going to create there to the middle, and these 2 I can just take the raw signals straight from them. So I can just take the raw signals from there to the green and the raw signal from there to the red, or I could have just connected there to avoid. In fact, I am going to do that. It's a little bit more tidy. So there to there. So I've connected those 2 to the raw signals. So I can see that's got the raw input signals. This doesn't have any signals because it's reliant on the data from these combinators, and the red currently has the raw signals from those. Now, to set the levels, the top and bottom combinators are quite simple. Okay, the top combinator for green, I'm just simply going to say if the water is above a certain threshold, or set whatever logic you want, but I'm going to say if it's above, let's just say 100,000. Remember, this particular storage capacity in this network is 200,000 water. So if it goes above 100,000, I want you to output a signal of green. And I want you to output one of those signals. So all I'm doing is taking the raw input, putting some logic to it to say if it's above a certain value, and then output a new signal that I can use with the lamps. So that now is set up. I mean, that is fully set up, the logic there for the green. The red's quite simple too. We say, okay, if the water falls below, is that one above? Yeah, so that's above. If the water falls below, let's say 40,000, I want you to output one of a red signal, and that red signal can be used in the lamp lights. The red is now set up, so really, really straightforward. We've actually done 2/3 of this just by using the raw inputs for the green and for the reds. But now we just need to deal with the amber. The amber's a little bit more complicated, but not too complicated. Now what I want to do here is I want to convert the signals for the upper limit and then for the lower limit. So what I can do now is if the water is equal to or above the 40,000. Now remember, for the red lower limit, for the red light, it has to be less than 40,000. So I need to include 40,000 as being equal to and above for the amber. You can't do it just above, because that means if the water exactly hits 40,000, there's no logic that can be applied. Although in reality, it'll shoot past it or below it, so it probably wouldn't cause too many problems for you. So if the water is equal to or greater than 40,000, I want you to output one of amber or yellow, as the case may be. So the bottom limit is now set to be equal to or more than 40,000. Now the upper limit I want to be, so if water is equal to or less than 100,000, in quantity, so the constant quantity, then I want this decider combinator to output one signal of yellow. Now, in order for the amber to apply, we want both of those pieces of logic to be true. We want the value to be less than the green limit and more than the red limit, so you've got that in-between level. So we need two signals to be true in order for the amber to light. If the value is above red, but also above the upper limit of the amber, we don't want the amber to be turned on. We want the green to be turned on, and that will happen. So both things need to be true. We only want one, either the green, the amber, or the red. So what we've done here is just take the raw data in the inputs, and we're outputting only yellow signals. This can have three scenarios. It can have no yellow signals, one yellow signals, or two yellow signals. We want this amber to trigger when yellow equals exactly 2. And all I've done here is it means that this has to be true. It has to be equal to or less than 100,000, so below the green threshold. It has to be equal to or more than 40,000, so above the red threshold in that amber sweet spot. And then it outputs 1 for each of those two conditions. And then because we've connected the outputs of these logic to the inputs of that logic on this decider combinator, we can then use the new signals. Now, if we hover up above that, we see there are no signals. Why? Well, you got to make sure the thing's powered as well. So now that they're powered, I can see that there's one signal. Why? Well, if we look above, we look on the raw data, you can see that currently it's above 100,000. So this one will be outputting a signal of, so it's above the 40,000. So this is outputting a yellow signal, as you can see on the side here. But because it's not below 100,000, because it's in that nice sort of green zone, this isn't actually outputting a signal. So at the moment we've only got one signal. So amber won't work. In this case, green will work because, so as we can see, the output signal there is true there. There's no amber output signal, and there's also no red signal. All you got to do when you're testing these things is hover above the devices to see what's actually happening. So now what we need to do, we've got the logic there set. We only want this decider combinator to apply when the yellow is 2. We want you to then output just the 1 of the yellow. Now this can then output that 1 yellow and then can be used as a color for the lamps. So with the lamps, all you have to do is place the lamps themselves. Now, bear in mind these lamps are going to activate or deactivate based on the logic we've applied. Not the input logic for the amber, not the input logic, the raw data of the decider combinators. They're actually working off the output logic. So we've set the logic. We want these to use the output logic. You've got to be careful not to set the wire to connect it to the inputs. You've got to connect the wire from the lamp to the output logic of what we've just set on those. So we want the green lamp to be connected to the output of the green logic, the arrow pointing left. We want the amber to be connected to the output logic, so the output signal of the output decider combinator for the amber. And we want the red output here for the red logic to be applied to the red traffic light lamp. So they're all connected. Now we need to set the logic for the lamps. So we want to enable or disable and use colors. We want these lamps to use colors based on, in this case, when the green signal simply equals 1. So when this logic is being hit, this will output a signal of 1 because there is more water than 100,000. We've set that logic already, okay, using the raw data. So because when I hover over that, you can see it has an output signal, if you look on the right hand side here, of 1, this will use colors because green is 1. Okay, I want to do the exact same thing with the others, except change the colors to be the corresponding colors. So for the amber light, I want to use colors, or yellow. So use colors when yellow equals 1. Very simple. So far the test's going well because we've got one light on. We don't want more than one light on in this. And the red is, we want to use colors when the red signal is 1. And because we've only connected this lamp to the output of the red logic, it will only take signals from there and nowhere else. Now, how do we actually test to see this is working? So what I've done here, just to run an actual test, is I've disconnected all of the raw inputs from my factory. So there's no raw inputs on the... This is a little bit further up from the example I've shown you, but it's exactly the same logic with water. I've disconnected the logic from the raw inputs, and instead I've got a constant combinator that I can set the value of for water. So to do that, you just click an empty slot and you set a value, you select the symbol and you set the amount. I've set this to be 100,000 water. Our logic I've got here for the amber is so I want an output signal of 1 amber if it's less than 100,000, so I want it to, because it's not green at that point. But I also want it if it's above the 40,000, because it would go red when it goes below the 40,000 to output 1. So it's pretty much exactly the same logic as below. It'll output based on this input here. But I've also connected this constant combinator to the red and to the green light logic, decider combinators. So the signal that this side gets here and this side gets here will be exactly the same. So this is just a representation and just to test it really. So I can now change this because it's above 100,000 and this logic is set to be equal to or above 100,000 to go green. The green light works. Now if I just change that to 99,999, the green goes off and it flicks to a amber because it's hit that threshold. Now just to test the theory, I'll set this to be 40,000 and it's still amber, and that's because this lower threshold is equal to or more than 40,000. It outputs that signal. Okay. Now remember, this amber one needs to have both conditions be met. Now, if I just change this now, instead of 40,000 to be 39,999, the yellow goes off because only one of these conditions is being met. And therefore this condition is now being met. So red equals 1 and the red output is being done there. So it's probably a long-winded way of explaining it, and I've probably tried to go into too much detail, but hopefully you found this video useful. If you have any questions whatsoever about how to set this up, or if you're having any problems, drop a comment on the video and I'll try my very best to troubleshoot it. I don't mind even jumping into your maps and helping you out as well if you're having trouble with this. Yeah, if you found this useful, thumbs up the video, and until next time, take it easy.